warm welcome to all the participants in today's webinar. This is our 24th webinar in our talk series. A special welcome to Mrs. Katrin Kivi, Her Excellency, Ambassador of Estonia to India. Before I introduce our respected speaker today, and for those who were not there earlier and have joined us only today, Rtambhara is a wellness company that looks at wellness in a holistic way. Not just the body, but the mind as well, and all through the practice of knowledge and wisdom that comes from our ancient Indian scriptures and heritage. We conduct corporate programs and retreats for wellness that look at personal transformation and tapping into oneself to unlock our infinite potential. Of course, in these days, we are restricted to the web, so we are conducting these programs virtually, and we will shortly be uploading our virtual program offerings on our website, rtambharawellness.com. Do visit our website. Meanwhile, we've been conducting webinars with very knowledgeable speakers, and many of them are our Rtambhara faculty. The topics we delve into are self-discovery, personal transformation, health, harmony, holistic well-being, as well as the arts, which help to connect us with our higher selves. All our earlier talks are uploaded on YouTube under Rtambhara Wellness. And if you would like to be part of our community, the details of where you can connect with us are posted on the chat function here. Alternately, please post your contact details, cell number, email ID, so we can add you to our groups. These groups are admin posting only, so you will get information on our programs regularly. Now back to today's program, and we have for you a very distinguished speaker, one of our members from the Rtambhara Wellness Group, Shri Vikram Vishwanathan ji. He's been there with us as a mentor all through our journey and so far, and we thank you for that, Vikram ji. So a little bit about our speaker today. Shri Vikram ji has done his undergraduate and postgraduate studies from the US. He's an industrialist, having run one of the largest logistic companies in the country. He's the Honorary Consul General of Peru and a very generous philanthropist. Today's talk is the result of being a very involved father to his 3 lovely children and putting his best effort in bringing them up as beautiful human beings inside and out. The last time we met, he mentioned how he cooks up these lovely meals in London for his children. That's how involved he is. So today's session is going to be for 60 minutes, but Vikramji wants to break this up into 6 sections on 6 different topics. Each of them will consist of a 5-minute talk by him on a particular facet of parenting from a father perspective, and we'll follow that up with 5 minutes of question and answer. So please listen carefully and post your questions on the chat function that you see at the bottom of your screen. The 6 topics that he will be talking about today, and this has come from him, are why does one become a parent, the birth of expectation, change of priorities as we age, balancing between our needs and our children's needs, unexpected situations and circumstances, and finally, the conclusion. Just some protocols. Can you all stay muted through the talk? Otherwise, our host will be muting everybody through the talk. And please feel free to post your questions on the chat function as and when we are talking as well. So thank you so much, Shri Vikram ji, for being here. And please welcome. And can you take over?
Thank you. It's an absolute honor and pleasure to talk in a group like Rtambhara. Anywhere else, it's about the mundane things that we do in life. This is about uplifting growth. And as I wrote to another friend, as we grew from wearing khaki shorts to cycling to where we are now, there are things that we pick up on the way, and we'd like to share with our children. And we'd like to share it amongst ourselves. So whatever we have time left with the kids, we try to make the best out of it. and make them into better citizens, make them into better people. And the first thing that I would do is talk on why does one become a parent, and then I'll throw it up for question and answer. And I just start the timer here, so in that way we know. So the thing is, couple of the things, there's no right and wrong answer over here. There's no real thing saying this is the right answer for you. But it is just something that we have done along our way, which we'd like to share. And bringing up an awareness on the things that we go through. Our parents did their best for us, and each one of us tries to do something for the next generation. But if we have answered a few questions, if we have done a bit of inventory within ourselves, maybe we could help them do better, which is something that we all kind of progress towards. One of the, from what I thought, is there are three parts on which one becomes a parent. First is, and these are not in a particular order, it could be, it's just put in together. The three things are legacy, social expectations, and fulfillment. Fulfillment could be when you don't have children, you might need to adopt, there's an emotional need, you feel you need to, there could be something where if it's from the wife's side or your side, there have been instances I have seen where people who have not able to conceive go through a lot of mental trauma, and sometimes adoption is the right way for them. Sometimes philanthropy is another way out, but there is this part of fulfillment which comes in. There is a social expectation from parents when you get married. In India, perhaps, maybe the global people are here, but I don't know how it is in other cultures as much. But in India, the wives do feel that they should become a mother from their families, the elders, and everybody else. There is a kind of a social expectation. There is a peer pressure. Right or wrong is a separate issue, but there is a pressure which does happen at times, which people do feel over here. There is a legacy. There is inheritance issues. Whether it's political, whether it's monetary, whether it's spiritual. Sometimes there is a legacy which one wants to pass on, and they do become parents in, they see a way out. And so it's a combination which takes place. But very rare have I seen where the parents sit together and push the entire world out, and just the two of them say, why is it, do we need to be a parent? And gender issues are spoken about openly, and we start saying, okay, if there is a child, what is it that we would like to do as a parent, and the duties of a parent and the responsibilities of a parent. Very rarely, when we were kids, when we got married, we did not discuss these things across. And I think it would be better if these are discussed, spoken about, and if it's a place where whether it's a father or a mother, what is it that we will do as parents? Of course, we want the very best for our children, but going a step more into that is something that we could look forward to. But that is something that we could definitely look at. So I'll kind of pass on the back to you, Beenaji, because it's a little more time than I've taken. So a little less time for interaction, but let me pass the thing back on to you.
No, not a problem at all. Questions? Does anybody have questions on this first part, which is why does one become a parent?
Need not be questions, even you could share what your thoughts are, I guess.
Yeah. So, well, let me share my thoughts. I think we just sort of slip into this role And, we get married and that's what society expects out of us. We just slip into this, and then we know that we have, after about a year or two, we just have to have children, and that sort of completes our life. It's not a choice that we actually made, but it was just what everybody expected out of us, and so it just naturally happened. So I think what happens is that, at a very young age, we are even not exposed enough, but yet we are having children. We haven't seen life, we haven't figured out life for ourselves, and yet we are bringing a new life in. So I don't know, what do people have to say about that?
I think Suresh Chikkapalli was trying to say something.
Yes.
Thank you, Vikram and Binaji. I think it's a wonderful opening remarks for you. See, parenting is something which has to come natural, and what we have seen over the last couple of decades is that as Vikram rightly said, peer pressure, everything is there. But end of the day, once you have the children, your entire world changes. Right. Lucky are those who get the children on their own, and if not, some people go into adoption. But whatever is the case, your entire world changes, and you are a different man when you see a child in your house.
That's true.
The new generation youngsters are much more equipped than the older generation people like us, because they know exactly what they want at what age. So it is not that they just get married and get children. No, they are very clear. They settle down, and they are well settled. They quickly get into marriage. They quickly buy a house or a car, and they quickly want children, and they want the best for their child. See, for example, one thing I'll tell you. My father never bothered about me when I was even going to school. He never dropped me in the school because we were allowed to ride a bicycle and go to the school. Even when we are going to the 5th or 6th standard or 10th standard. But today, even till 10th standard, the parent is going and dropping them in the school, and they are not allowing them to be independent. So the happiness which a parent gets out of a child is tremendous. And particularly if you talk about a father, because he goes around in the morning and maybe gets very little time with the child. The moment he comes home, he forgets all his stress and all his problems. So I think it's a great expectation, and today, even though when we got married, you were right, Binaji, that we didn't know why we are getting married so early, and because at the age of 23, 24, we got married, and we had children at 26 or 25. So we didn't know, but the generation now knows about it. Yeah,
that's very true. Yeah. That's true. But what I wanted to say was that you talked about people taking their children and dropping them to school and still doing all of that. Where is that balance? Where is it where you have to give the children independence? I guess Vikramji will come to that at that point. At some point, he's going to tell us where is that, where do we actually stop and let the child sort of flower on its own?
See, what is happening today is we are too possessive about our children, and we are even worried about giving them an injection when the child cries.
Right.
So that kind of possessiveness has overtaken the love and affection of the parents. So only when they are going into undergrad or grads, then they get their independence.
All right. Okay, we'll go back to Vikramji to.
Binaji, this is KL here. I just had one question with permission from the host and
yes.
Vikram. Vikram and me go a long way back in terms of we did our school together, and I was a general manager for IBM Finance and Accounting until 2018, and I moved over to do my own consulting. Interestingly, I've joined Indira Gandhi National Open University for MA psychology. So for an accountant to actually change streams is something which is, I would call it a process of self-discovery. So I'm enjoying doing what I'm doing. My question to you, Vikram, and the learned folks on the call is, in terms of why do we parent? Of course, the answer is legacy to kind of inheritance. So many things are there, right? But what I've seen is some sort of a stigma associated with people or parents who cannot conceive, and as a result of which the alternative for them could be adoption, which is a great solution. Somehow that is still not embraced, or that is still not, maybe awareness spread is not enough. And just to give an example is, I have two kids, and my sister and brother-in-law are a childless couple. Okay. Somehow, they have not been too comfortable in terms of adoption, and this is something of the past, too late to do anything now. But I have seen a lot of parental qualities in terms of the way they actually bring up my children, as an example, even when they visit our homes. So I always used to tell my sister, you would have made a wonderful parent, right? So that parenting quality and capabilities are there, and it somehow comes out, in the form of to their nieces or nephews, in the form of advice, in the form of upbringing, in the form of character formation. I think, and being born in a Brahmin family, I'm just saying, somewhere, not to bring up religion, but somewhere there is a stigma, right? That I don't know whose child or what type of child I'm adopting. So I think that awareness spread will certainly bring more value, and help that question of why do I have to become a parent, which somebody could not answer, right? You could be a solution to many children, right?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you for that. One of the key parts that we're talking about parenthood, and you will realize as we grow older that probably along the Maslow's theory of hierarchy also, you start realizing that it's not just you need your kids to be fine. You realize that you need the world to be fine for your kids to be fine. So you start looking at it, and you start moving into an ecosystem where you start becoming a well-wisher to everyone, because that's how the world becomes nice to you too. And as you start looking and growing beyond yourself, the world becomes your kutumam. And as you start accepting that, adoption also becomes easier. But more importantly than that, accepting others into your fold and others accepting you into their fold becomes easier. And that's what bringing down barriers is all about in this new age. And hopefully, even here now, just look at it. We are all sitting down in a digital format. Nobody could have even thought of this even last year. It's an amazing transformation which is crossing everything and moving across. And hopefully this moves. And as we grow and accept others, and as we grow, when we were growing up, it didn't matter to us whether it was our friend's mother or our mom. If we were hungry, we just went and ate. I still remember friends, a friend of mine called Sudeep and Mohan. We used to go down to the house and we used to eat in so much comfort. We never looked at whether it was his mother or my mother. They all were the same, and they looked at us the same too. We were all kids. We were all mischievous. We were all problematic kids, and all the parents looked to us as kids coming in, and that really today, unfortunately, but I hope it comes back, because the more we accept others and the more others accept us, adoption and things of this sort become a lot easier. It's very important that you not only wish good for yourself, the minute you start wishing good for others, automatically God will wish good for you also, others will wish good for you also. But it starts when you start wishing good for others. Binaji, if you want to add something.
I think I won't add anything at this point, because we are going to run short of time. You have plenty of subjects still to do. So would you like to move on?
I would like to add something to this, Binaji.
Sure.
To Mr. Kumar, See, I understand the predicament your sister and brother-in-law are going through, but my experience says that no age is too old for adoption. Please understand, and this is the age for them actually to have someone around in their house to look after, and when they cross about 65 or 70, they will have someone to take care of them. Because as brother and sister, you have your own family, they have their own family, and you can't spend that much time. So I would maybe request you to again talk to your counsel, your brother-in-law and sister, to look at adoption even today. Because
absolutely, thanks Suresh ji for that.
The moment we cross our 60s and 70s, you will not know how much lonely we become, and we lose one of the partners, then it will be more difficult.
Absolutely. So, and that is one reason I always...
we should not, Kumarji, we should not bother about the world, bother about the public, bother about the criticism or this thing, because no one cares about you when you are alone. So that stigma, you should tell them to forget about the stigma, because none of them will come to your rescue when you are alone. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, sir, I completely agree. And just another 5 seconds, sorry to take that, Binaji. I was looking at an all-time favorite program of mine, which is Different Strokes. It was being played on TV.
Yes.
And
there's Bill Cosby.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something brilliant. Yeah, which actually addresses all of that. Yeah, thank you.
Binaji, if I can move on to the second point. When the child is born, I would say it's more than the child is born. I would change it. I would say it is expectations which are born. The expectations of the parent on the child, the expectations of each other on the partner, the expectations of the society on the parent, all interacting together on what do we want the future to be. So the future kind of plays out there, whether it's the dominant partner or the society's dominance over the culture, or the rebel within the child to kind of stake a claim in this whole process. And the kids actually take some time to decide what they want to be. But I have not seen many parents who are accepting the child's character to be what it is and work with the kids. You will see a lot of the parents immediately want the child to be trained in a particular manner, all depending on the expectations. So the birth of expectations is more prominent and more complex than the birth of the child. And understanding these expectations, one of the parents, the partners themselves, working with the society and working with the child. Each child is different, each child is unique. Each child has got their pluses, their minuses at different ratios. Each father is different, each mother is different, though I would say the mothers are elevated in their affection and disciplining. As far as duty goes, the fathers are no less. But you will see that we struggle to get the child into a common frame. Sometimes the child is not sure whether to follow the mother, not sure whether to follow the father, or not sure whether to follow the friends or the society as a whole. There are different things on whether you went to a convent, what was the impact of a convent on you, whether you went to a city school, how was the impact of that on you, whether you've done your masters, whether you've done your undergrad, what does it say, what does it do for you? Things of these sort all shape into the conversation on what the expectations are. I would strongly urge the parents to sit down, take a step back and say, what is it that we expect from these kids? What is it that we expect from ourselves? And kind of get some handle on this very dangerous thing called expectations. This is what I have found to be, and this is the second part of becoming a parent. And this is a very crucial part of becoming a parent. Meenaji, over to you.
Yeah, I think the problem with us is the kind of attachment we have to these children, and we don't actually view ourselves as channels for just bringing these beautiful souls into the world, and letting them flower on their own. There is, like you rightly pointed out, Vikramji, every child has its own, absolutely its own way of learning things, of doing things, their own capacities, their own innate nature. There's so much, and there's beauty in that. I think there's beauty in having that. But what we like to do is to just make a carbon copy of ourselves. Most parents are doing that. What they're doing is trying to get them to follow this kind of order, that kind of thing, or this or that. So there's a lot of compulsion from parents to bring up replicas of themselves instead of actually just like watering a plant and letting the plant actually flower on its own. So I think we have to understand this. The expectation thing is where the attachment comes in very strongly, and that is something we need to disassociate from. And I don't know, strangely, because I was in a joint family and my in-laws were equally involved in bringing up the children, I really never felt that the children were completely mine. They didn't completely belong to me. They were children in the house. That was the feeling I got. So in some ways, that was a good thing. So would anybody like to add to that?
Yes, Beenaji, when you spoke about expectations, see, we live in a global village, and I think these expectations are driven by certain societies also. If we take a global perspective, if we take a perspective of some different nations, some different societies, children also at the age of 13, 14, they are very independent.
Right.
Parents leave them very independent. But then it comes as to how you give directions, along with independence, as to how still you can guide them from a distance. This is one input. So some places expectations are there, at some societies it's not so much overbearing. This is my input.
Is Krishna Paniji there? He was wanting to say something.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yeah, I was reminded of the statement of Khalil Gibran, where he says, "Your children are not from you, but through you."
Yeah.
In a sense, it is the great cosmic forces of nature which allow a child to come into this world through you, and you do not actually possess your children. So there is this element of understanding that the child is unique, and you are only a channel for the evolutionary process to continue. And the point which you mentioned also, we do not try to understand the two important things from a spiritual perspective of what is the swabhava of the child and what is the swadharma of the child. What is his innate nature and what is the context in which he is born, the environment into which he is born, that creates what is called as the swadharma part of it. And his innate nature is what his swabhava is. And there is this necessity to provide an environment where these two things match and they are in harmony with each other, which would allow the flowering of the consciousness functioning through the child.
That's very beautiful, Krishna Paniji. Yes, absolutely right.
Beenaji, I just had one point to make KL here, if I may.
Yes, sure.
Just wanted to talk about, and I just typed it out in the chat. See, there is a movie called Tanmatra. Okay, this starred Mohanlal. I don't know how many people have seen, but this is something from a learning perspective one has to see. I'll tell you, down south, families, like someone was mentioning, the minute a child is born, its destiny is already kind of planned, right? And it goes so deep. For example, a money lender or a Marwadi son will only end up counting money. This is the precedent which is set. A doctor's son has to be a doctor, right? And this sort of thing runs very, very deep. And sometimes it's very difficult to break off that path. This movie Tanmatra is about an aging father who had or nurtured dreams of making his son an IAS officer, who's Mohanlal. And Mohanlal works in the secretariat. And for whatever reason, he's not able to clear his IAS despite several attempts. But he goes to a very good position, right? And then it talks about the struggles that Mohanlal goes through. Finally, in the movie, he is someone who ends up losing his memory. But towards the end of the movie, his son ends up becoming an IAS officer. So it's not about just the father or the mother, and it's not as easy like people say, leave it to the child. It runs deep, and from generation to generation. So what started off as a dream which was nurtured by the first generation, it's the third generation that actually realizes the dream of the son becoming a collector, right? So that is something which I'm not talking for or against this whole thing, but it's something so deep which can't be brushed away so lightly.
But that brings me to one thing. Again, it seems to me like it was an expectation of the generations to have somebody who was an IAS officer in their family. So it's still an expectation that's coming from the outside. Is this the actual temperament or the nature of the child?
No, Beenaji, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
How I would like to put it is, because this child is growing up in that environment, right? It becomes a passion for that child. And I'll just take 15 seconds to narrate this story. The first time when I was in school, when I asked my dad for pocket money, he used to work in LIC, but he used to also deal in used cars. So he said, you have to earn your money. And I asked him, what do I need to do? He said, wash my cars, right? So I started washing the cars, and cars became a passion for me. I could have become a businessman selling used cars or whatever, right? So I'm saying that's how the passion builds. So there's nothing wrong. You're not just, throwing something or thrusting something on somebody. Yeah. You start living that, because that's something which the family is dreaming of, right? And becomes your passion. But there will be cases where people are completely against that thought process.
Yeah, I guess so. Over to you, Vikramji.
The next point is, as we grow.
Okay. Just one point, Vikramji.
Yes.
Some echo in your voice. A lot of people have just mentioned that they're not able to.
Can you hear me better now?
There's still a little bit of echo is appearing.
Let me try to turn on the fan. Hang on. Is this better now?
For me, it is okay, but few others from outside, can you just comment if it's okay?
I see some thumbs up coming in.
Yeah, that's fine. So go ahead. Thanks.
As we age, we all start looking back at who we were, and we smile back, and it's amusing, and our priorities change, and our understanding changes, and our concept, our view of the world changes. There are three things which happen. The conflicts which you have kind of metamorphosizes into an understanding, and that understanding over a period of time becomes acceptance. And finally, it is only when you accept that the conflicts start to disappear. So there are several conflicts, parent versus child, within parents conflict, parent versus society, child versus society. There are different areas in which, when you're young, your hormones are running high, and you are, over there at that time trying to make a difference. That is something we got to sit. There's nothing wrong with the conflicts, but it's very important to understand the conflicts. And once you start understanding them, what are the priorities of the partner? What are the passions of the child? What are the limitations that you have to balance between the passions and the priorities that are there, the expectations that are there? What is it that you can provide? And once you sit down and you transparently kind of discuss this out, it forms the bridge for moving from conflicts to better understanding, and from better understanding to acceptance. This is the third point. And when you come to the acceptance level, and that is what I call is the transformation from expectations to nurturing, one will be able to move up the scale in parenting. This is the third point. Over to you, Binaji. Is the echoing a little less now?
Someone mentioned that if you keep your mobile a bit away from you, it might help.
Okay, as long as it's time. Yeah, okay, there's a time on the computer. That's fine. Okay, I'll do that. Is it better now?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah, that's better. Okay. So you talked about how our priorities change and we suddenly start to become a little more accepting and more nurturing. I think the problem lies with how much we actually identify with every single emotion or every single wish or every single thing that the child is, how much we identify with that. If we can actually distance ourselves a little bit and look at our children as, like we say in spirituality, be a witness, and watch them. And then we're able to actually enjoy them for what they actually are, and nurture them. And if, somebody is going in a direction that isn't actually the way you want them to go, we have to be open enough to actually accept that and encourage them to do that, because that may be their swabhava, that may be their passion, and it's not necessarily yours. In fact, maybe from a business family, some guy wants to just be a musician or something like that. And actually it did happen to our family to some extent, because my son wanted to be a drummer. And, my father-in-law said, "Kya band baja bajayega?" That sort of thing. Band master banna hai. So, so there's a difference of expectations. And of course, we let him play the, drums, and we were much more open as parents, and we allowed him to play the drums and do whatever he wanted to. And we encouraged him to go into whatever field he wanted. But I think that's the important thing. I think we don't have to get, society is one thing, but by being slaves to society, we can actually spoil the whole situation for our children as well, and we are also brainwashed by society, and that same brainwashing is what we are passing down to the children. So I think that's really not fair. So anybody else would like to add to that? Does anybody want to add to this particular thing, as how we age and our priorities change and we suddenly realize?
Yeah, Binaji.
Yes.
What my experience says is that, 80% of the children around up to the age of 13 or 15,
right,
they do not understand or they do not know what is the priority they should choose, except for about 20% of children who have special talents and special passion for something, which at a very young age they come out with a passion of writing, drawing, or music, or academics or something. Otherwise, these children are happy-go-lucky children, but they don't know what they want. So unless the parents or the family molds them into something which is important or which is good for their destiny, otherwise they get into wrong hands and wrong direction. I would also like to tell you one more thing. Her Excellency Catherine is here. Hi, Catherine. The Indian society is totally different from the Western society.
True.
The Indian culture is that even if the child becomes 50 years of old and he has a father who is 70 years of old age, so the father still wants to protect the 50-year-old son. So what we have seen in the Western society is by the age of 12 or 13 or maybe 15, the child is given a lot of independence to be on his own, earn on his own, study on his own, and live his life. But here we are overprotective in our society, and the father earns money and doesn't spend on himself. He keeps the money for his son, and also for his grandson, not only his son, but also for grandson. So, so this is what is happening, because we have seen our parents, and we are seeing what we are doing, like what Vikram is doing. You know, he has made enough money for his family and children, but
Right.
still he's looking at, you know, when his grandchildren will come and this money will be enough for them also. So that is the kind of protection and possessivity we have. So, you know, the society in which we are living also creates the kind of environment what we see.
Yes.
But the same society, same Indians, if they go and settle in US or Europe or Lithuania or Estonia, again the environment changes and they're as independent as the Western society. Because we have seen a lot of NRIs who are from the age of 13, 14, they are independent. You know, they're independent of their parents and other things. So it shows that the society is a part of the whole development and you know, creation of a path for the child.
Yeah, I would like to also add something to what Sureshji told.
Yeah.
We must have trust on our children, and when the children have grown up, we should allow them the space. And then there is something which is called the learning curve. And nowadays, the times are far lot different than it was 10 years ago, 15 years ago. There is a lot of exposure to information. The children also do a lot of brainstorming amongst themselves as they grow up. They also know what is a good career path. They also emulate from others' experiences. They read a lot of biographies. Now, gone are those days when a son of a businessman also inspired to become a businessman himself. He can become anything else. So times are far more changing, and so the take of this is that let us give independence to the children as they grow up and have trust on them, on their capability and the instincts which they have learned from the ecosystem, from us, and also there's lots to learn. We are learning also as we speak.
But Praveen, one more thing, what is happening in today's context in major cities of giving more independence by the parents, which we have been seeing in cities like Hyderabad, Bangalore, children are getting into the wrong peer pressure and getting into the pop culture and drug culture and things like that. So as long as you give independence, you should also have a you know, eye on them.
That is perfectly all right. The foundation should be built on stone, not on sand. And what the child sees at home, right from the age of 5, 10, 12, that becomes a truth for him. So if the home has been such that which has garnered with him lot of, proper foundations, teachings, and these teachings also, and the practices also which he sees is sequence to what he's hearing, the child becomes stronger. And when I say that, okay, when he grows up more than an impressionable age, say after 20, and of course as parents we can keep some distances and we will get feelers about what the child is into, where is he headed to.
Yeah.
Can we hear from Her Excellency Catherine about her Western experience on this?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Very well.
Yes. So thank you for encouraging me as well to take floor. I'm a mother of two sons, two boys born in 93 and 95, early 95. And when I was ambassador to Denmark from 2011 to 2015, then my elder son got ready with high school. They both went to French school. And then until 18 years of age, in our part of the world, we consider them still children. But after the birthday, after a child gets 18 years old, then he has the full right to declare himself an adult. And my elder son, he was very sweet and they both had good results. But then suddenly, one day after 18 years old, he told me, no, Mom, I don't want to go to university. I will leave after high school to Liverpool with my two guitars. And university was only plan B. And then I got very, very scared, because what can you do today without university diploma? And his younger brother, he knew already from very early age that he wanted to become a doctor. They were so different, 15 months, although 15 months difference, but so you can't find them more far away than my two boys. But then suddenly in Liverpool, this plan B still became plan E, because nobody paid him for playing guitar on the street or somewhere else. He just decided to follow still his passion for learning the poetry and writing, because he was very passionate about Shakespeare. And so he made his license in English poetry, but still he didn't have any clue what to do with that. And at that time, when he got ready with high school, I was already in Strasbourg, ambassador in the Council of Europe. And then suddenly I got a call, ma'am, now I come to Strasbourg and I make my master studies in Strasbourg. Well, I got my elder boy back, who somehow revolted to become adult, and then, okay, getting your child back again in 3 years later, that became a different relationship and different, different story. And then he made his 2 years master in Strasbourg in French and German comparative literature. And then I thought, okay, now I hope he will become independent. And then this was probably one of the reasons I came to India, to get just far away and let them grow and become independent. Otherwise, I always was willing to do so much and be overprotective and planning this and that. And well, I studied myself German language and literature, and I didn't know either what to do with that. And so sometimes the boys or the young people, they just need more time, and we must have a patient and so understandable attitude, give them space to grow and be far away. Sometimes it helps. But now, yesterday night, I got another call from my elder son. Now he don't want to stay anymore in Strasbourg. Now he thinks he will gain his father. His father is living in another part of France. So this makes sometimes us a little bit worried and scaring to trust the journey, the unknown journey of your children. But we don't have any other solution as to trust them and to encourage them, because we cannot live their lives. And the younger brother, he's in continuing medicine studies in Copenhagen, and he wants to go now to Ireland. So it is a good thing that the borders are open, but it is depends the family model. If the family is not anymore together, then from far away, you don't reach out to help too much. But it is really, I stress once again, trust is a very important thing, and giving space to the children for growing. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Those were beautiful statements, that you have to trust them and you have to give them space. I think that's the critical thing. But Sureshji, just to answer your question, I think one thing is that I think if you have very sound values in the children, even if they go astray, I've found that they actually come back, even if they go astray. They always come back to the right path, because there's something in them that brings them back, because their values are so strong. So I think as a parent's duty, I think it's important to inculcate these values.
Binaji,
Yeah.
Strong values is a very strong word. Because till our generation, we have strong values. But the younger generation, how many of them have read your Ramayana and Mahabharata or any of the Puranas or any of these things?
No, just
whatever we are able to,
sir.
No. Yeah. Whatever we are able to teach our children are the values. But what is happening is when we are struggling ourselves in lives, we never had time to spend that much time with children. and to push them into strong values. So this is where what happens is a lot of peer pressure is happening in cities like Hyderabad. And all the neo-rich businessmen who are, who made billions, they do not have time for their children to, teach the values.
Yeah.
And money is freely available, car is available, everything is available. So what I am trying to stress on is, whatever freedom, whatever this thing we give to the children, we should always keep an eye on them and give them our comfort that we are not their bosses, but we are their parents. That's all.
Can I also request Mr. Ashit Ghosh to add something and give his perspectives, because he's been in training and academia and he has very rich experience in dealing with teenagers and college-going students also. Very briefly, Ashit ji.
First of all, I'm very grateful that so many enlightened people around, and it's an opportunity for me to learn, and I'm learning. Very briefly, because I came to hear Vikramji, and we are taking his time to discuss. So it may not be very fair for me to take a lot of time, but let me tell you, I come from a very humble place, and I'm pretty proud, a very important place in the world map. It's called Shantiniketan. So I have had the exposure of reading and learning from Tagore's philosophy, who I consider one of the greatest educationists and a father figure and one of the greatest minds of the last century. And one of his greatest statement is so valid in today's context. And he used to say, if you take children away from nature, you will end up making them machines. You will end up making them machines, and they will be filled with conditions. So what we are discussing today, we must remember that we all parents are too much conditioned. We are filled with condition. However much we say we'll give liberty, we'll give freedom, we will not condition our children, somewhere in the psyche, deep inside us, that conditioning always exists. And we know whatever there is inside the psyche is more important than what we behave and what we talk outside, as Krishna Panaji always talked about Svabhava and that. So the best thing, I do not know, it will be too idealistic, but if all of you very well-placed people can think of a developmental system which can decondition the minds of the parents, and that's enough. Because our parents never had any parenting training. And we grew in a very difficult situation. My father used to give me 50 paise for going to school and college. And I will not pay the bus ticket and save somehow the 15 paise to go to the tiffin room to eat something. That's the way I got brought up. I don't say that I've become a big man, but I have not got wasted and worsted. I saved myself, and I'm doing some worthwhile job. So they were not trained as parents, but what they learned was from the nature. All the exposure, as Beenaji talking about the joint family, it's very good because they're learning from life. They're not learning from people. More we learn from people, we'll end up in conditioning ourselves. So this teaching mechanism and too much of systems and syndicated rules and norms conditions the children. Is there any way we can decondition them? That's why Tagore made schools under the tree. Children used to sit in the tree. They will sometimes go and have a swim in the river and come back. Children learn. So that's my message, that exposure-based developmental system can save the future. Not any more time. That's for
and may I just add something. You see, we are talking about parents regularly and conditioning their children. So parents ought to also need to lead a life of self-awareness. Children need to be also on their own, and we need to give them the freedom. That's very important, I think.
I agree. We are actually, we are overshooting our time. I hope it's okay with everybody, because we still have, it's a very interesting discussion, and we still have a couple of points left, which Vikramji has to tell us about. So over to you, Vikramji.